Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's truly my honor to have Irada with us today. I'm going to let her introduce herself. We're both Microsoft alumni, but I've just been learning so much from her, and it's truly an honor to have her here. So, Irada, welcome, and please introduce yourself for our
Oh,
guests.
thank you, Bobby, and thanks for having me. I'm very flattered to be on your series. I've looked at all of your recordings, and they have such a great and very practical with thought leadership speakers. I hope that I can meet the bar here. I am originally from what's now is known as Russia, used to be Soviet Union. I grew up in the city of St. Petersburg. I have gone to school there. My first profession is academia. I used to teach at the university, and that kind of gave me and colored a lot of my approaches in the corporate world. And then I went to corporate life and done everything from sales to information technology, and came to Microsoft back about 20 years ago. And at Microsoft, my career took kind of equal amount of time on engineering systems and on cultural activation when Satya Nadella has become CEO. That's kind of how my professional career in a few words.
Fantastic. And I love that blend. I think that engineering and tech background just made you so valuable in terms of knowing what that reality is like when it comes to organizational development and leadership and change management. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're very humble to. It's my honor, truly, because I see you in from a distance as truly one of the mothers of organizational development. So I'm really honored to have your inputs on this topic of respect. So let's dive in, Irada. Please, yeah, let's do the standard question of how do you see respect in the workplace? How do you define it in the workplace context?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Ever since we talked last time, I was thinking about respect and what it means. And I feel like there is so many different notions that each of us gives it. And in the end of the day, sometimes it feels like respect is more of a in the eye of the beholder. And that's very well maybe true. What the respect means to me with my background, with my values may look differently for someone in different background, different values. But you actually get into the deeper notion of respect. What it really does, it's deeply rooted in the chosen values that have that human origin. So let's say the first thing you will see from respectful environment in a respectful interaction is practices, is the tone of voice, is the people that not interrupting each other. So there is this kind of behavioral components that respect uh, demonstrate or demonstrated by respect. But then when you really dig into it, the fact of the matter is when you deeply acknowledge the value of other perspectives, which means you deeply acknowledge the value of others, not only equal to yours, but actually truly considerably even more so. And you recognize the variety of different perspectives provides the full picture, and you assign value to those perspectives. That's when you learn to truly self-regulate and the behaviors come across very easy. But let's dig deeper. Where is it really coming from? It's from truly acknowledging the diverse nature of a human as an entity. We all are different. And I know I think there are some sciences that speak to about 170 different types of diversity. And I would say there are 8 billion people on this planet. There are 8 billion archetypes. It's just we all are different. And knowing that it's the diversity is rooted in human nature, and the including those diversities in understanding, interpreting the world and acting on the reality of your work, that elevates to, and that's really generates those inclusive and respectful behaviors that I think helps understand that respect actually has different notions of different depths, if you would. That's kind
Beautiful.
of, I don't know if this is a scientific statement or not, but that's how I consider it. And that's where I think it starts really plugging into culture, which is organizational environment. characteristic.
Yeah, no, thank you. We're very aligned on what you said about that. Deeper truth is 8 billion people, every single one of us are different. I think you'll also share with me there are lots of different systems of personality tests and assessments. I always really caution people around generalizations and
Mm-hmm.
falling into the trap of, oh, gee, we have the same letters, or
Mm-hmm.
no, we're all individuals, we're all different. And let me try this with you before we move on, Irada. I think we're also guilty in this age of technology and speed around we want things in small bites. We want it simple. We don't have the patience to get really deep and thoughtful. And that's why by the way, you laid out the first letter in the respect framework, which is recognize that we're each different. E is empathy, but the third one is spaciousness. I don't know if it's a generational thing or just the effect of
Yeah.
technology, but we're so quick to move quick. And if you can't do the elevator pitch, if you can't quickly get to your point, we're prone to that Twitter style, like everything has to be, short and quick. Um, I'd love your thoughts on that. Like, how do we get people to actually slow down, to
Yeah.
have the patience to seek to understand one another?
And this is where I think it becomes really interesting. I think maybe we associate it generationally because it happens now, and the upcoming generation acts without having other behaviors. But I am guilty. I have to tell you that I've caught myself competing with my attention. With where do I pay attention? Do I read the first sentence and say, oh, I know what it is? And when I do that, do I actually disrespect the author's point of view? Absolutely, I do. So I think for me, it starts from if you truly believe in respect, which means other people's value is great, other people hold the pieces of the truth, and it takes working with other people to make anything successful nowadays. Nobody flies to the moon alone nowadays, right? So, or ever. When you think about this, the first notion of it, do the work. The rule is do the work, create the space. I was listening to somebody who recently was talking about um, competing for attention, and they noticed in their personal life how they found that they paying attention or giving attention. And the other thing that they started thinking about, wait a minute, I am always demanding my attention, like attention to me and what I want, but do I really pay attention? I compete for getting attention, but do I compete for giving attention? And I think that's where you have to hold yourself accountable. For that purpose, I would say make the space, do the work. And for those of us who work in work environment, understand that it's your accountability to make that space for respectful consideration of other people's positions and points of view. But if you're leading an organization, if you're a manager, you also need to be able to role model and encourage the practices that actually demonstrate that respectful environment in real life, not in the words, not on a slogan, but in that working meeting, in that email interaction, in that Teams chat, or whatever platform you use chat. you know, I think that's the part of it. It kind of somehow comes in. It's still a personal set of behaviors that you take accountability for. I think that's what it takes.
No, beautiful. And I also am guilty of all those things you're mentioning. I think that introspection, we just need to come to that and have the patience to be vulnerable and authentic to deal with that. So, by the way, I think you were already in the second question, which is how do you know when respect is present in the workplace? Anything else on that, Irada?
Yeah, I think the one of the biggest things that we're learning more and more, even encouraging, like if you start digging into what Amy Edmondson's now doing about the psychological safety, it's fundamentally the only way to truly know whether or not a person or a group comes across respectful, it's through feedback. It's how you get it, which is always hard to figure out. How do you get highly intellectually honest in a highly psychologically safe environment to speak out? Yes, you can go and ask people, tell me, give me some feedback on requests, but have you on respectful practices, but have you provided the safe space to have that open conversation? And then you do that in individual conversations or in a group feedback or the whole organizational feedback comes across. I'm I still remember the times of Microsoft, which is I'm only 3 weeks out of Microsoft at this point. But we actually had in a daily pulse, which was our cultural pulse, a question among the top 6 questions. One of them was about how you experience the respectful environment in day to day. I think that's really helps. How do you know? The second one is to allow evolving the definition of respect. There is one that people share, but you do the work with multiple parts of the world. And respect in Japan does not look the same way as respect in Germany or Finland. I can tell you that because I've lived in all these places. And when you start looking about it, is there are some core things that people share in what respect really means. Simple things like what I mentioned before, don't interrupt, allow a space for venting, but also some deeper notions that go into inclusion, into growth mindset. Is my mind open, or have I made up my mind after the first 6 words that Bobby said, and I'm just waiting for him to finish, to listen to argue versus listen to understand. And I think the third thing in an organizational environment really important is actually holding people accountable for it. It needs to be a part of a rewarding not only what you delivered, but how did you deliver it? So if you want respect and a respectful culture and respectful environment, there needs to be accountability for how you do the work, and it has to be real. Not only monetary and financial rewards, but also recognitions, promotions, kind of giving bigger jobs. It's truly having the accountability expressed through the practices.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. So maybe as a segue to when we know when it's not there, I want to hear your thoughts on that. I want to try this. Carl Jung's term shadow, right? Those
Mm,
things that we hide, suppress, and deny. It's my notion, and I don't mean to bias you, but my notion of when I get out of that human, uh, I think we are wired to be respectful, but I fall, right? I fall into that ego part of me or my agenda versus yours, etc. So I think Carl Jung's term shadow is very relevant when respect is not present. MIT Sloan has quoted that toxic
mhm.
culture cost $50 billion just in the US per year. So this is a very serious business issue. It's not a soft skill. It's, to your point, it directly ties to accountability just as important as revenue and other metrics. So yeah, when you know that it isn't there, and I think you're agreeing with me that we're all been in environments when it's not. What is some guidance you can give our listeners to how do you, co-create an environment where you get back into really integrity with having a respectful culture? I love, for instance, you said, I think one of the big ones is leaders have to model the way, they have to walk the talk.
They have to. Yeah.
So yeah, but
When it's not happening, here's again, this notion about catching yourself in the notion that, oh, I know what's happening. This is rude. Uh, I think in order to truly act on something that you want to hold people accountable, it starts from awareness. Start from awareness of a situation and the context. And it's not for excusing somebody's behavior. It's for explaining to yourself what's happening so you can understand. And that means getting curious. Well, Irada is raising her voice right now. I wonder what's happening for her right now. And potentially maybe even kind of introducing small techniques, little there, here and there to kind of catch those in the moments because there's damage that happens right in the moment. So one thing is do that. Um, the other thing is have courage to truly act on it. And it's not about chastising a person in front of everybody. It's not about punitive action. It's truly going back to it, hold people accountable for it. But there is the third notion we forget. Respect demonstrate the practices when a human is at their best. And there's a lot of attention nowadays to mental health and well-being. And I think we are stopping a little bit short when we talk about it by explaining that when you are well-being, you actually perform better. Your capacities are at the higher, better form. It's like an athlete. I slept, I trained, I ate well, I rested, I'm playing the game better. So this idea about taking care of yourself, and if you're in an organizational hierarchical authority position, ensuring that people are capable, able to take care of themselves, there's a systemic set of solutions to do that. I think that's really important. So when it doesn't happen, it is, yes, you hold individual accountable, but at the same time, you have to revisit the system. Is the system truly is enabling, empowering, and rewarding the right behaviors, where this happens less and less? I do have to say, Bobby, that in our day and age, and we should probably say that because it's a totally different podcast, but we do have to recognize the socio-political and economical environment right now is highly, highly tense. And that's not the best conditions for humans to be at their best. And then you bring the notion of AI, that's quite threatening for some, and then you were putting humans at a very difficult place to perform. So this understanding and empathy that we all are challenged in one way or another, at one degree or another, I think that's very important, not only for prevention of the slippers when you slip, or somebody else slips in a respect, but also how to help them to get back on the trail, or how to get yourself to get back on the track. That's kind of I've been thinking about it.
No, thank you. I'd love to have you back, actually. I think that's a part two. Let's go deeper into that because a few guests have already brought this in kind of unplanned, and I was really glad they brought it in. Is I think that topic is related to how we're operating out of fear. And so what happens to our, human body, mind, all of us, right? We just get tense and we're not doing our best. Very quickly, also for later, though, Amy Edmondson's known for psychological safety. What I'm more intrigued by her, to me, that's foundational, but her work around teaming,
Right.
which is when I am not in fear and I don't feel threatened by your intellect and your contributions, and I'm confident in my own, that's when the magic happens. And I think
Yes.
we're really missing that. I think people are so caught up in the one-man upship and the agenda and how one should, and of course it gets even more complicated as we look across cultures. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's another topic. But let's close, Irada, with any final thoughts, please, in terms of tips for our audience to take away to have more respect in the
I
workplace.
would, yeah, I would say probably be aware of the context and what means what and what context. So don't act in Japan the same way you act in Finland and vice versa, or where you are in sales versus engineering. You kind of understand the context. Be curious about other people's point of view, and it starts by assigning the value to others just as much, if not more, than to your own opinions. And the third one, keep yourself accountable. While I believe that there are good organizational systems you can put in place to create the culture of respect, in the end of the day, do I believe in it? And do I want to perform on it? And this idea about soft skills, you probably know, Bobby, soft skills are the hardest to gain.
Say that all the
And
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that AI is going to create the environment in which what we used to call soft skills, I would call them power skills. Those skills will become more and more and more important for humans.
I love
And I
it.
think
I love it.
that's
By
the
the way,
part that
I've
we,
created an offering for people in transition
yeah,
with careers. So that just came to mind as you use. I'm so glad you brought in the word
you
power.
should bring it forward in this
Well, that
podcast. Let's
product is
make sure
called,
it's there.
yeah, the end product is for each human being to know their power manifesto. Imagine if we all really got clear about what's my purpose, what's the gift I bring,
Mm-hmm.
not think about competition. Remember that I'm one of 8 billion and I'm proud of being exactly who I am as you are with who you are. Those things are not soft. They're actually very hard to achieve and they're very hard to stand by and go with. So, Irada, it's been such an honor. Thank you. And I'll definitely have you back for part two at some point, maybe next year. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And honor is all mine. Thank you, Bobby. All the best. Good luck and lots of good other videos that I need to go back and listen and watch now.